What happens when the world's second largest economy posts the biggest trade surplus in modern history, while the United States hits it with some of the highest tariffs ever? Because in 2025, China didn't just survive tariff pressure, it printed a surplus so large it quietly rewires global trade power. And that raises the real question, did tariffs slow China? Or did they simply change the route? Let's break it down. China's total goods trade in 2025 hit about 45.5 trillion yuan, roughly $6.5 trillion. Exports climbed to around 27 trillion yuan, while imports were about 18.5 trillion. That gap produced a record trade surplus close to 1.2 trillion, an eye-popping number. Not big, historic. Now here's what makes it a geopolitical story. This happened under heavy US pressure. Tariffs on Chinese goods were pushed to extreme levels at points, and even after adjustments and truces, the effective burden stayed high enough that, on paper, exports should have been crushed. But exports still grew. How? Because China adapted, and this is the key. Exports to the US dropped sharply. But China expanded faster into Southeast Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, and Africa, and in many cases, those markets don't just buy for themselves, they also act as trans-shipment and final assembly hubs. So, instead of Made in China, America, you increasingly get China components, Vietnam, Indonesia, Mexico assembly, global markets. That's trade diversion. Tariffs don't always end trade. Sometimes they just reroute it. Now add the domestic angle. Imports barely grew because China's internal demand has been weak. Property stress, cautious consumers, and a tighter credit environment mean China is leaning on external demand to stabilize growth. So the surplus isn't only a strength signal. It's also a warning sign. Exports are carrying the load while domestic momentum looks fragile. And this is where the world should pay attention, because the next phase isn't just US versus China. It's how does everyone else react? Here are the 3 paths forward. Path 1. Global pushback. Emerging economies start protecting their own industries from a wave of ultra-competitive Chinese goods. That means more tariffs, more quotas, more fragmentation, and a less predictable global trade system. Path 2. China locks in the global south. If China becomes the default supplier for machinery, electronics, vehicles, and industrial inputs across dozens of countries, its leverage grows, not by alliances, but by dependency. Path 3. A messy stabilization. The US keeps tariffs, China keeps exporting, supply chains keep shifting, and both sides claim victory, while the world absorbs the price effects and the political blowback. Now, I'm Imran, and for my channel Imran Breaks It Down, here's the bottom line. The 2025 surplus doesn't prove tariffs failed. It proves something more uncomfortable. Tariffs may not be powerful enough to break an industrial supersystem, especially one that can reroute trade through the rest of the world. So here's the question for you. Do you think the world is heading toward a broader anti-dumping pushback against Chinese exports? Or is Beijing about to cement a new trade dominance across the global south? Drop your take in the comments. And if you want calm, no hype breakdowns like this, hit like, subscribe, and share. It tells the algorithm to keep pushing real analysis.